The summer sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the backyard where I sat, lost in thought. My mother had recently remarried, and while I was happy for her, I struggled to adjust to the new dynamics in our home. My stepfather, Mark, was charming and attentive, but there was something about him that made me uneasy. Perhaps it was the way he looked at me, his gaze lingering a moment too long, a hint of something unspoken in his eyes. As the weeks passed, I found myself increasingly drawn to him. It was confusing. I knew he was my stepfather, but there was an undeniable chemistry that simmered beneath the surface. I tried to push those feelings away, reminding myself of the boundaries that should exist between us. But the more I resisted, the stronger the pull became. One evening, my mother had to work late, leaving Mark and me alone in the house. We decided to watch a movie together, and as we settled onto the couch, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The film played on, but I could hardly focus on the screen. Instead, I was acutely aware of Mark's presence beside me, the warmth of his body, the way he occasionally brushed against me as he reached for the popcorn. As the night wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The playful banter we shared turned into something more intimate. Mark leaned closer, his voice low as he made a joke, and I couldn't help but laugh. Our eyes met, and in that moment, the world outside faded away. I felt a rush of adrenaline as he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering on my skin. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, but my heart raced. I knew I should pull away, but instead, I found myself leaning in closer. The tension between us crackled like electricity, and before I knew it, our lips met in a tentative kiss. It was soft at first, but the moment our mouths connected, a wave of desire washed over me. I pulled back, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mark, we can't—" I started, but he silenced me with another kiss, deeper this time, filled with urgency. I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration as I surrendered to the moment. The boundaries I had tried to uphold crumbled, and I found myself lost in the thrill of the forbidden. As the kiss deepened, I felt a rush of emotions, guilt, excitement, and a longing I had never experienced before. We stumbled into a whirlwind of passion, exploring each other with a fervor that felt both exhilarating and wrong. The living room, once a place of comfort, transformed into a secret haven where we could escape the reality of our situation. But, as the night wore on, the weight of our actions began to settle in. I pulled away, breathless and filled with conflicting emotions. "What are we doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. Mark looked at me, his expression a mix of desire and regret. "I don't know," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But I can't help how I feel." In that moment, I realized the gravity of our situation. We were crossing a line that could never be uncrossed, and the consequences of our actions loomed over us. I knew I had to make a choice, but the thrill of the connection we shared was intoxicating. Eventually, I knew I had to talk to Mark. One evening, after dinner, I found him in the living room, lost in thought. "We need to talk," I said, my heart racing. He looked up, concern etched on his face. "About what happened?" I nodded, feeling the weight of my words. "I can't do this," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "It's not right. We can't let this go any further." Mark sighed, his expression a mix of relief and disappointment. "I know," he replied softly, "but it's hard to ignore what we feel." We agreed to keep our distance, focusing on the family we had become. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was the right one. The memory of that night would linger, a bittersweet reminder of the forbidden connection we had forged. But I chose to honor my family and the love my mother had found. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means everything to me and helps us create a space where we can share, reflect, and grow together.